All right, welcome to class. I believe I've started the Hangouts thing, right? I'll turn the projector on. I got to broadcast down to the coast here. Just a second. Presentation, present. Okay, do y'all, on the coast, do you see the PC? Got the air conditioner on up here. Probably a good thing with the sun coming in, but if it gets too loud or you just want it turned off or whatever, just turn it off. That's fine. Okay. Yes. Whoops.
Pretty much, I think I'm speaking for everybody properly when I say that we're all falling behind, and all of it's so much the IBN or that it's very difficult to get in contact with you over email, or just the fact we don't have anybody down here to help us with Python. There's a number of factors, and I'm pretty sure none of us are going to be able to turn in a work this Tuesday because we're not receiving help.
Okay.
If you know anybody who can possibly be free to tutor us or anything, because it's very frustrating. So I want to learn Python. I need to learn it for my job, but I feel like I'm not properly learning it. I'm more struggling. And this is the first class I'm not trained for it.
And I know you've emailed me several times.
Yeah, I emailed this weekend and didn't really receive anything. I haven't been able to really get anything done.
Okay. So there's some questions about last week's assignment that haven't been answered yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I usually, it helps to work in a team, but no one else down here can help. Mm-hmm. And we're all trying, but we're all struggling a lot.
Right. Yeah. Well, what we could start out this week by just having questions about last week's assignment and trying to answer them all together. If you don't mind, like the
and I tried it on the computer, like the lab computer still had issues with it. So I haven't even funded enough to actually develop legitimate questions. And I know, tell me if I'm wrong with this, but I think I'm the only one who typically started me.
Who started what?
Yeah, I'm not I have to say
Yeah, I'm the only one who's been able to like even start it. Because everybody's so far behind. I know you do this in 2 weeks, but it's kind of a continual falling behind, having an issue coming up. We're putting in the time, which is very not necessarily. I mean, I don't always have like a direct question, maybe one little tiny thing, and I know you have emailed me back a few times. But sometimes you can't exactly explain my issue of the text, and sometimes if you do respond, I don't quite understand your answer. So maybe it's not, I guess, the same as if someone who's right next to you kind of have a more, I guess, personal conversation about the issue.
Yeah.
Instead of like, few day delay, I mean, I have other classes at work, so a few day delay means maybe I don't have any more time to work on it. I mean, I'm kind of like already have, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely would be more ideal to have somebody, right next to you as you learn. I do know that you know, in lots of cases where I have to learn something for a project or whatnot, that you know, there are cases where I have to communicate with somebody remotely, and yet it's not ideal. I would like to come down there, although I can't come down, you know, every week, but I could come down there for the next time we meet, which is in you know, not next week, but the week after spring break, and you know, we could talk. It'll mean a really late night for me, but I don't mind doing it a few times during the semester. So I can do that. But yeah, I don't know of any. The department didn't give me a person to have down there.
Yeah, I don't think you guys in the department did Python. That's also an issue. I think you have to add a department, a back smarter, at whole, and seems like I don't know Python, so it's kind of suggesting going out of department to computer science, but I don't know if I should be bothering other departments with an issue that I've never met this teacher, that makes any sense. Although it should be bothering another. Kind of knowing to ask.
Right. So you're saying that I don't mind answering questions and taking up class time to answer some questions. So you know, go ahead and ask when you have questions, and if you have questions about last week's lab, I can. What's that? 2 weeks ago's lab, yeah, that's right. 2 weeks ago's lab. We got completely through. You said that we didn't get completely through it, but we got close to completely through it, and you're saying that what's posted on GitHub won't run on your computer. Is that?
Yeah, I was getting like 5, 6 different error messages. And I looked them up, and I've had a few of them before, and I checked the regular fixes, or at least I've fixed them in the past, and I still seem to get it to work properly. I don't know if people in high school have an issue or what. I worked on it for a few hours, but I couldn't keep it to the actual assignment part, if that makes sense. I got I just looked at my email and saying had a an execute error, an error with a number, I feel like
do you mind? Yeah, do you want me to pull your email up, or? Okay. Yeah, we can work through it after class.
We're having issues down here.
Yeah.
More than anything.
All right. Well, I believe that it's more important that you finish the work or you learn the concept than you finish at a particular time. So we can try to answer it after class, and then I can come down for the next time that we meet on 2 weeks from today on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
That sounds good. Okay. So today, what we're going to do is we're in week 7 here. What we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about GIS data, because today we're going to start using Python to interact directly with little pieces of data rather than what we've done so far when we do GIS is we perform a GIS operation on data. So we've said, okay, take this GIS data set and perform some GIS operation on this other GIS data set, and we get an output result. It's very similar to the concepts that we teach in a GIS course, like when we talk about cartographic modeling, or even how cartographic modeling is implemented in our toolbox. Okay, what we've talked about so far is similar to that. We're just basically creating ways to press buttons in ArcGIS. But sometimes it becomes important or vital to work with the data itself. And this way we could more easily implement some particular tasks that require a level of detail that requires us to look at the individual elements of a GIS data set. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I have this listed out here, is what is GIS data? Okay, what is GIS data? When I say GIS data, what do I mean? Anybody? What's that?
Two-dimensional reference, real world object.
Yeah, so we've got a reference to where are you asking me a question with its collect data? Oh, a collection of data. Yeah, okay, you're right. So it's a collection of data, and that data is what I believe it was it Daryl down there on the coast?
Yes.
That said it's a two-dimensional representation. Yeah, it's got some location associated with it. Okay, so GIS data is data, and we can represent data in lots of different ways. But what makes GIS data is that it has some location information along with some attribute information. Those pieces of information together make it GIS data. So GIS data comes in lots of different formats, and we'll discuss some as we interact with it through Python. The first thing that we're going to do is probably the most common way to interact with GIS data through Python is using ArcGIS tools to do it. But we're not going to look at these general operations. We're going to start looking at the individual data. And so with the data set being a spatial reference information tied to attribute data, one of the two major models for GIS data is what we call the vector data model. Okay, so what's the vector data model? You know what we're talking about there? Yep, points, lines, and polygons. I'm gonna open up ArcMap here. So we're talking about points, lines, and polygons. Okay, so in GIS data, what's a point? A point is it's a physical location. And what kind of information is stored in a point? Yeah, it's X and Y coordinate, and in some coordinate systems we think about that as a latitude and a longitude. In lots of coordinate systems, it's an XY, meaning it's in units from the origin. So that's a point. Okay. Now so that could be something that's one line of a data set. So here I'm actually going to download the data right now for this lab. If you go to GitHub and you look in the week 7 folder, there's a week 7 data.zip, and I'm just going to download that. It's going to download it when I hit view raw, and I'm going to copy this and put it in to temp, and say new. Actually, I'll just put it right here. Paste. Where did I put it? Go back and get it. Copy. I'm trying to just extract it, put it on disk. There we go. All right. So here, if I go to that data that I just downloaded, that's C temp, and I just called the data. I should have called it something better than that. I'm going to add these data sets. There's a warning that says that the tracks data isn't projected. That's fine. And I'm going to zoom to the extent of the parks data set. Whoops. Zoom to the extent of the parks data set. All right. So I've got some points, and it doesn't really matter what these points are at this point. And I've got a data set that represents polygons here. There's one thing that's important to note is that in the ArcGIS world, one particular theme can only be of one type of data: points, lines, or polygons. That's not true in every format that's out there. Okay, so there's other formats besides ArcGIS file formats, and even inside of ArcGIS, we've got shape files and we've got file geodatabases. We've got enterprise databases that we can store information in, and ArcGIS requires you to have either those data in points, those data in lines, or those data in polygons. Now, we said that a point was a latitude and longitude value, or an X and a Y value. Another thing to point out is that in most cases, in ArcGIS, points are actually, points, lines, and polygons are actually multiple points, lines, or polygons. Okay. What do I mean by that? Well, let's open this up. We open up this attribute table, and if I zoom to this layer here, if I highlight on one of these, it tells me which one it is on the map, right? I mean, we've done stuff like that before. We can see which one of these lines this is, and this is the shape information right here. The shape information is stored as this column in the attribute table. Now, when I select on one line, I only see one point every time. But that's actually not a requirement. In fact, ArcGIS allows you to store multiple points in one line. Why would I do that? Why would I want to store multiple points or multiple polygons in one line?
Roadway versus.
What's that?
Roadway versus.
Yeah, maybe in a roadway. I'm not necessarily understanding exactly what you're saying. Anybody else? Let's think of a few different polygons, like if we wanted to have this Michigan or Alaska or New York State. Even some of the counties in coastal Mississippi have islands off the coast that are technically part of that county area. And so in those cases, you would have a polygon that existed in multiple spaces. So it wouldn't be a single polygon. In fact, I have one of those in this data. If I open up this parks data set, okay, the first one here, Biscuit Knob, has a discontinuous area. See, Biscuit Knob actually contains two polygons, one polygon here and one polygon over here. There's two polygons there. In fact, if I go up to the editor and I say start editing, I'm just going to hit continue. And I click on Biscuit Knob's data, and then I go to sketch properties. You can see that it tells me that there are two parts to this this polygon. Okay, it's got this part and it's got this part. There's two parts to that polygon. And actually, even inside of a single part, there can be multiple rings. That's how ArcGIS represents something like a donut. There could be a polygon inside of a polygon, and it could be an area that doesn't exist in that. Something that doesn't exist. There's features like that. South Africa has countries that exist entirely within it. Is there any other examples of? Well, in Virginia, when a city becomes a city, it's technically no longer part of the county. And so if you look at a county map of Virginia, there's lots of holes in the county data because those cities are independent of the county. They don't exist in those locations. But there's all sorts of examples. If this really did represent a park, there could be a legacy property owner that never sold his plot to the federal government, and in that case, there could be a ring inside of this polygon. Okay, so we've got polygons, but more fundamental to that, look at what a polygon is made up of. A polygon itself is made up of points. So we've got polygons that are made up of points, and then lines are the same way. Lines are made up of points. So points are really the fundamental feature here. So if we want to start manipulating or asking about rows of data, that's what we're going to do this week, is access these sets of information row by row and see what we can do with those sets of information. So this is one row. This represents one entity, one thing in real life. In this case, it's a park. Okay. McGrew Plains here represents one entity in the database. Okay, one row. And if I look at its data set, if I look at its properties, it only has a single part associated with it. There's only one part associated with that data set. See the information here for those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6, and notice that they reference them starting at 0. And we'll see when we start accessing this data, the same thing will happen as well. Just like lots of the things that are in the Python world or programming world in general, they're 0-based. We start at 0 to say the first element. Okay, so we've got these numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if we were to look at these individual points, again, we have 0, 0 here, and the X and the Y. I could, let me see if it'll allow me to. You don't need to do this. In fact, it might mess up the data if you did for later. But I'm going to use the continue feature tool. Okay. So this data set must not be, which is all right. Yeah. So usually this will say multi-point if it allows you to make multiple points per field, and it does not. So this actually gave me the error there. It doesn't allow me to have multiple parts in this one. It only allows points, which is fine. So I don't need to demonstrate that. I'm gonna go up here and say stop editing, and I didn't make any edits, so it won't show those edits up there. Okay. So I got my data set, and every row represents an entity. Every entity has its attributes, and every row also has its shape information, or what we usually refer to in general as the geometry information. Okay, so that's not just in the ESRI world. We say a a spatial data set that's in the vector format has a geometry field and it has attribute fields. And really, outside of the SRI world, in fact, a vector data set can have multiple geometry fields in one table, but not in the SRI world. So you could have one record that represented, let's say, a city, and then you could have multiple geometry fields that represented that